Hi everyone, Podthany Cast Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new MGMT album, Little Dark Age. This is the latest full-length LP from New York pop duo MGMT, who hit it pretty big in the 2000s thanks to unforeseen hits such as Electric Feel and Time to Pretend and Kids. All great tracks, but Ben and Andrew didn't seem all that interested in maintaining their musical momentum in the mainstream, because almost immediately after putting out Oracular Spectacular, they started to release very strange and long-winded bits of music such as Metanoia, and then followed this up with their 2010 album Congratulations, which was fun but kind of uncompromising, and also my favorite record the duo had released at that time. The album overall seemed like a deeper embrace of the quirky, experimental, but very fun characteristics that made them interesting to start. There were also epic and multi-phased moments on this thing, like Siberian Breaks, some very funny hero worship, such as the song Brian Eno, and then the closer, the title track of this thing, is one of the most epic and heartwarming ballads the duo have ever penned. They followed this LP up in 2013 with a self-titled album that was a bit of a head-scratcher. I can appreciate that with each record MGMT seeks to do something entirely different, but this record was really unkempt, lo-fi to a fault, underwritten, underproduced, really under everything. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but to me it kind of read like a band having a difficult time adjusting to the musical landscape of the next decade. And also, it just kind of felt like the reception of this album was so negative, how could they possibly recover? But last year, they started to drop teaser singles to this new record over here, Little Dark Age, all of which piqued my interest and forecasted the duo going into an entirely different direction, just straight synth pop, but with kind of a haunted aesthetic to it. Like, there were definitely some Pet Shop Boy and Thompson Twin vibes coming off these tracks. Also a splash of Ariel Pink in the mix too, or maybe more than a splash, as the song James sounds like a dead ringer for a track that could have fit on like the Before Today record, the Ariel Pink's Haunted Graffiti album Before Today. On this track there's even kind of this goofy baritone singing that is like kind of Ariel Pink's calling card. This eerie similarity caused me to go look up the writing and production credits on this thing, and of course Ariel Pink is credited with co-writing at least one song on this thing, the song When You Die, so I'm not really surprised I picked that up. Hey, MGMT rip off Ariel Pink super friggin' hard on this record. Don't be that person that like just listens to this record and you don't listen to Ariel Pink. Please listen to Ariel Pink too. He's a really great musician. He's a really great songwriter. Lots of good albums in his discography. But it's almost kind of ridiculous how much MGMT pull from him on this album. Clearly it was a bit of a mutual thing, given that Ariel helped them with this record in a way, but still, you know, listen to Ariel Pink's music, for the love of God. The sound of this record is really nostalgic, but there's obviously a kind of modern silliness and sense of humor to it. It just adds an anachronistic quality to this very vintage style of pop. And this very fun aesthetic follows through on pretty much every song here. Of course, there are cuts that feature a little bit more acoustic instrumentation, but still the synths do carry at least some presence. And even when they're not here in full force, there's still an undeniable eeriness that cannot be shaken from a lot of these tracks. A lot of the songs on this thing are oddly spooky and kind of frightening and a little morbid. It's totally new wave, but there's also something a little gothy about it too, kind of tongue-in-cheek as well. Whatever the mix of moods and influences that are coming together on this album is, MGMT pull it off really well, and they pull it off very consistently. But even though I like the aesthetic and the instrumentation on this album quite a bit, my long-term enjoyment of this record really comes down to the sticky, unforgettable hooks, the songwriting, and the very dark, absurd, and unlikely song topics. Like the track She Works Out Too Much, which kicks the entire record off. A song that's essentially about a relationship on the rocks because the guy is not very physically active, I guess. Maybe it's a metaphor or a piece of symbolism for something else, I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think that's the case. In a way, the song at its core seems to be about a relationship ending or dying on the vine over just a lack of common interests or different personality types. But of course, that very common theme is made to sound kind of silly or put into a kind of unique light with all of these funny exercise references, a very fun, groovy, danceable beat and bass line. Think of the song as like the antithesis to Kanye's new workout plan. Then there is the track T.S. Lamp, which stands for Time Spent Looking at My Phone, which is a partly schmaltzy, partly surreal, partly eerily accurate song about phone addiction. I love the smooth groove, the nocturnal bass line, the dreamy swell of instrumentation on the hook, the dead-on lyrics, Jesus Christ. Then we have the track Me and Michael, which is a really cute, endearing, sweet song about friendship. I love the gently pulsating synths on this thing, the twinkling guitars. I like the cool, assuring lead vocals on this thing too. The way it's sung just kind of feels like a bit of a one-on-one conversation, which is totally contrasted by the angry and confrontational When You Die, which is like a bit of groovy acoustic rock with some very prickly lyrics saying, I'm mean, I'm evil, I'm not nice, go fuck yourself. The instrumentation is super catchy and very sweet in a lot of ways, but just the nastiness coming off the lyrics, it's kind of hilarious. The song When You're Small is a very haunting ballad with a lot of space around the core instrumentation and vocals. The duo definitely does their best to use production to kind of make the music feel like I don't know, that it's in a gargantuan space, or give the listener the feeling of that they're falling into some kind of abyss or shrinking in slow motion like Alice in Wonderland. And even though the song on its surface is about physical size, there are definitely issues of, I guess, emotional and mental insecurities being addressed here in the song too. Or I guess physical size being used as a symbol to address those things. I also love the haunting reverb laid onto the harmonized cultish vocals on the hook here. The trippy effects and instrumental overdubs that kind of flash up here and there, which this isn't even the only point on the album where that happens. There's quite a bit of that over the course of the entire album where you hear, you know, little instrumental flourishes or people talking and laughing, just weird effects to just add a little bit more color and context to the instrumentation you're hearing or the lyrics that are being sung. And the closing track, Handed Over, if I am to read this song correctly, to me feels like a meditation on the duo's struggle to remain relevant in the music industry. It's a very cold and intriguing finish to the entire album, but for me, the crown jewel of the record has to be a song that, for me, is one of the hardest to interpret, and that's the title track, Little Dark Age, a track that I've been enamored with since the moment I heard it as a single. But even though the meaning of the song isn't super apparent on its face, I do love the imagery and the cryptic lyrics on this thing, as well as the disembodied vocals singing throughout the track. The very murky bass line, throbbing synthesizers on the hook, stellar chord progression, and if any track on this album embodies the goth aesthetic that pops up here and there throughout this record, it's this one. Overall, really loving this record, really enjoying it. Not too much in the way of a gargantuan theme or concept running throughout the entire album. It just kind of seems like a nice, loose collection of very memorable songs that are tied together relatively tightly with a very focused aesthetic. Nothing more, nothing less. Good sense of melody, of style, of songwriting on this album. I'm glad MGMT are kind of back in a lot of ways on this record, have sort of overcome a lot of the faults of their previous album. There were a few cuts on here that felt like, to me, created a bit of a lull in the track list, mostly the song James, which again feels like an Arial Pink Xerox, as well as the instrumental Days That Got Away, which just read to me as all right, but still enjoying the album a lot, feeling a decent strong 8 on this thing. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Just leave an angry comment in the comments if you're feeling angry or whatever. Just get it out that way. Just, it's for the best. Video next to my head that you can check out, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, MGMT forever.